if you look at the history of ads, it sort of originated with the town crier who would, go from town to town and sort of, oracleize the news of the week or the month. And some enterprising small businesses realized that, hey, this guy, while he's talking about the news, could share a little bit more about my business as well and the goods I have to sell. And that's how ads were born. And so for a long time, distribution of media was very coupled with advertising. This has happened for centuries. And, it's not a recent thing. It's been all around. And now that we've moved into sort of the internet-driven age, we still are carrying that heritage. And honestly, that in some ways, the burden of media that's, sort of very, very intertwined with advertising.
Web 1, we still had this broadcast mentality where it was producer to consumer. And then we learned from Web 1 and inherent, this technology is interactive. That allowed this emergence of Web 2, where there wasn't this distinction between the producer and the consumer. Web 2 was all about interaction. So Web 2 was the producer is a consumer and the consumer is a producer. And you had these platforms that facilitated that. Now I think what we're experimenting as we, understand this, and we have about a generation of interactivity, or what you want to call social media, this evolution in technology to Web 3, where now you have the groundwork where not only is the consumer the producer, but the customer can actually be also the employee. So I use an app that's Web3 enabled, and in order to use the app, I have a token. And now that I am in possession of this token, I'm encouraging other people to also use it because the value accrues to the token. So I'm a customer, but then I'm kind of working for this app because I'm wanting other people to use it.
The wonder of the ad model is that you can get access to lots of materials without actually having to go and do a transaction, going and setting up a subscription that we're starting to see really make it more difficult to get to news sites. And so we're just with sponsored materials out there. So things that corporations, large governments really want you to see. So this is kind of problematic. There's other models. The Wikipedia, the Internet Archive, basically runs on donations. And fortunately, a lot of the crypto world has been donating actually very nicely and very generously towards building and having this type of ecosystem survive and thrive. But let's come up with other things. There's been always this micropayments thing. Can that work? But what if you can just make it so that you can easily publish, say, a song on the internet, and you can make some of it, some songs available for free, and then you say, hey, go and put a crypto coin in a slot, and you can get the decryption key for this song. And yeah, you could be a jerk and go and unencrypt it and then put it back out again. But what if we made it easy to actually do something for the creators? Can we go and make a system that works without all the middlemen? You don't have to go and host your things on iTunes or Amazon or Spotify to be able to be discovered and to be able to be paid.
What you've seen, even in the Web 2 world, is that the consumers of live video really value things like being part of the content that's being created, interacting with it, whether it's lightly through chat or more directly through, popping into the experience and being pulled on stage into the stream, or even things like digital gifting that interacts with the host in order to get a request or a shout out or request a song or whatever the use case may be. And there's a whole economy that forms around this that is, far more lucrative than just straight advertising, right? But what sort of efficient, rails need to exist to enable this? You need things that Web3 enables, like, global open access internet money of value that can be moved around under the hood to settle these things, right? You need really interesting primitives like NFTs are great examples, and I think there's a whole creative space of how to design this correctly. But the sense that unique, interesting content is being created, the people who are consuming these streams might value a sense of ownership or a sense of provable uniqueness on this, and that becomes another really interesting Web3 native model that looks a little different than just advertising.
Something that these technologies are really suited for is streaming payments. I've seen them used a lot for things like salaries or grants, and I would love to be able to use them for something like, every day I go to Reddit or somewhere and I start clicking on links and I get redirected to the New York Times or the Washington Post or the X or the Y or the Atlantic, and every time there is like, oh, your 5 articles, you've already read them, and subscribe. These technologies would let us, I go to a website and it's like, okay, you're paying a couple of cents per minute or whatever it is, and let me read something, and then as soon as I exit, I stop paying.
Venture capital specifically has created an environment where people have been aiming to create companies with runaway growth, right? So companies that could continuously double or triple their value, 10x it, 100x it over a decade. And so that's actually led to this sort of need to find the cheapest, most efficient way to get capital, which isn't always just asking for capital from your users. And so, but I think what we're seeing now is this shift, and crypto has actually enabled it in a lot of ways, this shift to people building smaller, more sustainable projects. And what's really exciting about that is that smaller, more sustainable projects can be supported by a community of users and advocates. And so what's really nice now in thinking about community-owned platforms and community-owned technologies and creations is that they can actually choose what the future of that thing is. And so I don't think any of them will ever choose to be exploited by the technologies that they own. And that's really important. That's probably the most important thing in my mind about this future is just, it's giving these guarantees that technology remains true to its users.